He had already killed a housemate during a drunken argument over money. After serving 15 years in Romania, he was released and moved to London. 3 years later, another housemate confronted him over just £5. The location had changed. The victim was different. 2 decades separated the murders. But when investigators compared them, they discovered a disturbing pattern that had barely changed. At 8:51 on the evening of Friday, February 20th, 2026, Metropolitan Police officers and paramedics were called to a residential address on Westbury Road in Walthamstow, East London. Inside the property, they found 63-year-old Gheorghe Trica unresponsive. Gheorghe had suffered a single knife wound to his chest. Paramedics made extensive attempts to save him, but his injury had penetrated his heart and caused catastrophic internal bleeding. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The man suspected of killing him had not escaped into the night. He was still close by. His name was Eugeniu Neamtu, a 59-year-old Romanian national known to those around him as Jimmy. Neamtu and Gheorghe were not strangers. They lived together in the Westbury Road flat, along with other residents who had heard the confrontation unfold. What initially appeared to be a sudden domestic argument would soon expose a much darker history. Neamtu had killed a housemate before, and the circumstances of that earlier murder were disturbingly similar. Earlier that evening, residents inside the flat heard Gheorghe and Neamtu arguing in Romanian. The disagreement concerned money. During the prolonged confrontation, witnesses heard Gheorghe repeatedly demanding that Neamtu return £5. It was a trivial amount, but the argument continued. According to the prosecution, Neamtu armed himself with a black-handled steak knife taken from the kitchen. He then drove the blade into Gheorghe's chest with severe force. None of the witnesses reported seeing Gheorghe carrying a weapon. As the disturbance reached its most serious point, someone inside the property realized that Gheorghe had been cut. Mortally wounded, Gheorghe made it outside the flat and collapsed on the communal balcony. The residents who witnessed the aftermath described Neamtu as calm. They also saw him standing on the balcony and making a throwing movement over the railing. Whatever he had thrown disappeared into the garden below. In the minutes after the stabbing, several emergency calls were made from Neamtu's own mobile phone. One of the calls was later translated with the assistance of a Romanian-speaking interpreter. During it, Neamtu told the 999 operator that there had been an altercation, that a man had been cut, and that he was the perpetrator. It was an extraordinary admission. When police reached Westbury Road, residents immediately identified Neamtu as the person responsible. Officers arrested him that evening. Meanwhile, a police dog was deployed to search the garden beneath the communal balcony. Officers recovered a steak knife from the area where witnesses had seen Neamtu throw an object. Neamtu would later admit that he had taken the knife from the kitchen. The emergency call, the witness accounts and the recovered weapon formed a direct chain of evidence connecting him to Gheorghe's death. But Neamtu offered a different version of what had happened. During police interviews, Neamtu largely responded with no comment. Through prepared statements, however, he claimed that he had acted in self-defense and had never intended to kill Gheorghe. Neamtu alleged that Gheorghe had insulted him, threatened to kill him, pushed him down a staircase and attempted to attack him with a chair. He said that he had taken the knife only to frighten Gheorghe and used it to defend himself. Detectives examined those claims. The witnesses inside the flat did not support Neamtu's account. None reported seeing Gheorghe armed or behaving in the violent manner Neamtu described. A medical examination found only minor superficial injuries on Neamtu. The pathology evidence was also significant. Gheorghe had not suffered an accidental or glancing injury. The knife had been driven into his chest with enough force to penetrate his heart. Neamtu was charged with murder on February 22, 2026. As investigators examined his identity and background, they uncovered another homicide committed almost 20 years earlier. In August 2006, Neamtu was living in Romania. He had been drinking plum brandy with a housemate named Adrian Vass when the two men became involved in an argument concerning money, rent and work on the property. During that confrontation, Neamtu picked up a knife from inside the home. He stabbed Adrian several times in the chest, and Adrian died from his injuries. Neamtu claimed that he had acted in self-defense, but the Romanian court rejected his account. In May 2007, he was convicted of murder and received a custodial sentence. He ultimately served 15 years before being released in May 2023. After his release, he is believed to have traveled to the United Kingdom and settled in Walthamstow. 3 years later, Gheorghe was dead. The similarities between the two cases were difficult to ignore. Both victims were men who lived with Neamtu. Both confrontations involved alcohol and arguments over money. Both killings occurred inside residential properties. In both cases, Neamtu took a knife from within the home and stabbed the other man in the chest. And after both deaths, he claimed that he had acted in self-defense. Metropolitan Police investigators used fingerprint evidence to confirm that the man on trial in London was the same person convicted in Romania. Neamtu denied murdering Gheorghe, and the case was tried at the Old Bailey in August 2026. Jurors heard testimony from residents who had been present inside the Westbury Road flat. They described the argument, Gheorghe's demand for the return of £5, Neamtu's behavior after the stabbing and the throwing movement over the balcony. The prosecution also presented Neamtu's emergency calls, the recovered steak knife, pathology findings and medical evidence. The evidence contradicted his claim that Gheorghe had launched an armed or sustained attack against him. The jury was also permitted to hear evidence concerning Neamtu's earlier Romanian conviction because prosecutors argued that the two incidents shared striking similarities. However, during the trial, the judge restricted how the earlier offense could be described to prevent the jury from being unfairly prejudiced by simply being told that Neamtu was already a convicted murderer. After the trial concluded, the full history could be reported. On Tuesday, August 18, 2026, the jury deliberated for approximately 3 hours. Neamtu was found guilty of murdering Gheorghe Trica. Gheorghe's death was not the product of an elaborate criminal operation. There was no carefully constructed alibi, long-term surveillance, or complicated escape plan. Instead, the case revealed something more direct: Neamtu's capacity to turn a minor financial disagreement into lethal violence. His first murder conviction resulted in 15 years behind bars. That sentence did not prevent the pattern from returning after his release. Once again, a man who shared a home with Neamtu challenged him over money. Once again, Neamtu reached for a knife. Once again, the victim was stabbed in the chest. And once again, Neamtu claimed self-defense. This time, witnesses, pathology evidence, emergency recordings, and the discarded weapon exposed what had happened within minutes. Detective Inspector Jonathan Potter described Gheorghe's death as a tragic and unnecessary loss of life. £5 may have triggered the argument, but it does not explain the decision to respond with deadly force. Responsibility for that decision belonged entirely to Eugeniu Neamtu. M.O.R.T.E.M breakdown. Motive. The immediate confrontation concerned Gheorghe's demand for the return of £5. However, the evidence suggests that wounded pride, anger, and a desire to dominate the dispute were more significant than the small amount of money itself. 8 out of 10. Operations. Neamtu did not extensively plan the murder. He used a knife available inside the home and attempted to dispose of it by throwing it from the communal balcony, but witnesses saw him do so and police quickly recovered it. 6.5 out of 10. Reach. Neamtu committed two similar murders in two countries almost 20 years apart. His movement from Romania to Britain extended the consequences of his violence across national borders and exposed a second community to the same behavior. 8 out of 10. Terror impact. Gheorghe was killed inside the home he shared with Neamtu, in the presence of residents who heard or witnessed the confrontation. The revelation that Neamtu had previously killed another housemate intensified the public impact of the case. 8.5 out of 10. Execution style. Both killings involved domestic arguments over money, knives taken from within the home and wounds directed at the victims' chests. The repetition of this highly specific pattern became one of the case's most disturbing features. 9 out of 10. Mindset. Neamtu remained calm after Gheorghe was stabbed, attempted to discard the weapon, and later advanced a self-defense account unsupported by the witnesses. Repeating a closely comparable killing after serving 15 years for murder demonstrated extreme violence and a failure to change his behavior. 9.5 out of 10. Two housemates were killed almost 20 years apart. Different countries, different victims, the same argument, the same violence, and the same excuse. If you value carefully researched stories that remember the victims and examine the evidence, subscribe to M.O.R.T.E.M and turn on notifications for our next case. Always remember to stay aware and stay informed.